Hi, we had to go back and do a little editing before we could post this video. And we want to thank the people that make all this possible. Silencer Central. They focus on one task, making high quality suppressors. You see the banished lineup here on our shooting table quite often. Davidson's Gallery of Guns, where you get a guaranteed lifetime replacement on every firearm. The Sonoran Desert Institute, with curriculum in firearms technology, gunsmithing, drone technology. Go to sdi.edu. And then Alabama Holster, my favorite little Kydex concealment holsters. I love them and been using them for a long time. Check them out. Now, enjoy the video. That's an order. Empty. Yes, let's talk about a couple of 45s that are empty, and they're similar, actually. So what we're going to do is talk about how they're similar, how they're different, and you can see the topic: $500 1911 versus $3,000 1911. What is the difference? We did a little of this with some single actions and things, and oh man, with 1911s, it's a jungle, isn't it? It really is. And we thought we would compare it, and it's kind of a representative of the, I'll say, of the lower end, the less expensive 1911s. You know, Arms Corps, the Rock Island, which is Arms Corps, I guess. I mean, there's lots of them in that category that are $400, $500, $600, depending on what's on them. Okay, and so it's just kind of an example of that. So we'll talk about this gun, but it's representing that class of firearms. So now this one is an Ed Brown. And it's called the Special Forces. I just, you know me, I'm a wannabe soldier. No, it was just kind of random that I ended up with that one. Got that one back in the T&E days. They sent that out, and then I was going to send it back. I said, by the way, what do you want for it? And they gave me a discount on it. And oh man, you know, I didn't really set out to buy an Ed Brown. I got the other Ed Brown, the Cobra Carry, because it was used. I got a good price on it from a gun shop. But you know, the price they quoted me on it, I thought, wow, you know, I almost couldn't get a Colt for that. Well, I could, but you know, with a little bit more. So I bought it. That's why I have this specific one. So I don't go around buying $3,000 1911s myself, but I just sort of ended up with a couple. Okay. Now, when I say 3,000, that's kind of the topic. That's a ballpark. The 500's a ballpark. The 3,000's a ballpark. But you know, if you know anything about custom 1911s, you know, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500. Look at the Wilson Combat website, Nighthawk, Les Bear, and there's people always throw in other ones. Some I'm not even familiar with. Dan Wesson is not quite that expensive generally, but they make a really nice one. It's not, I guess, maybe considered as custom as these other four. People mention Jesse James. You know, and I think of Outlaws in the Wild West, but I'm not familiar with their firearms really. But there are other custom 1911 makers, I guess. So excuse me for always throwing out those same four all the time. Okay, just more familiar with them. You know, kind of I'm old school, I guess. So this is kind of representative of all of them. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about that for especially newer shooters. Now, if you're really experienced with 1911s, I'm probably not telling you anything other than just giving you my impression. But if you're not all that experienced with them and you're thinking about one, and maybe you're going to do well to even afford a $500 one, but maybe you have the resources, you could buy a $3,000 one or a $2,500 one or a $2,000 one, and you're still not sure whether to do that or not. It's like AKs, you know, it's a jungle trying to figure out which is the best AK. You know, I get a lot of questions about those too, and a lot about 1911s. This is kind of a major FAQ, I guess, video. So, bottom line is, it kind of depends on what you want. I'll give you the punchline up front. In a lot of ways, these inexpensive 1911s tend to work, especially the Rock Island Armory. And I've read a lot on them. I've had a lot of experience with all these firearms. And as I always do, if it's anything complicated at all for my brain, I prowl around the forums and see what people are saying about them. I'll even print some of it out and read it. I just like to get a good feel for what the current opinions are of people who seem sensible. Okay, you know, there's a lot of stupid stuff on the internet. And you really had to newsflash. There's stupid stuff on the internet. right? You see it in our comments, you see it on forums and everywhere, of course. But a lot of people are quite sensible. Most of the real sensible people don't even comment as often, Now, I mean, not that if you comment you're not sensible, but I mean, you see a lot of intelligent comments on our videos. People even comment about that, in fact, that it's a civilized place to participate. But you don't see a lot of the stupid stuff that gets filtered out. But there's some bizarre, crazy, folks out there, of course. But you can tell if someone seems to know what they're talking about, and even they might be off base, but you get a feel for what people are experiencing with these guns, and all guns. If you study it and read and get around enough on the internet, you really do. And ask people in gun shops, gun shows, and everywhere else, people you respect that know what they're talking about. And the Rock Island Armory, the consensus on it is they're good guns. These guns made in the Philippines are good guns. The Rock Island Armory has served a lot of people well. I saw several comments as I was doing research of people, I got 20,000 rounds through mine, no trouble and all that kind of thing. Well, they might have forgotten a few malfunctions, but by and large, they work, okay? They work. If you don't have the resources for a $2,000 or $3,000 firearm, don't feel like, oh, I can't get a real gun, but I'll get me a Rock Island Armory, I guess, or one of the Turkish 1911s, or any of the others. Ruger makes some that are not that expensive. I'll just get me a cheap one and make do with it. I'll feel bad about it every time I pull it out at the range. It's not like that, not at all. Hey, anytime you're paying $300, $400, $500, $600 for a firearm, that's not exactly junk. There are people on the planet, as you know, and in this country, they can't afford to buy a $150 gun, or barely can, okay? So we don't want to really classify these as cheap guns. $500 is not cheap. I don't know about you, but I've never considered that cheap for anything. So that said, there is a difference, but it's not necessarily gigantic. I think I talked about that in the other video with single actions. It sometimes if something is just a little better, it might cost a lot more because of the handwork in it. I saw a posting, you all may have seen it, somebody was, he may not know what he's talking about, but he said he had read somewhere, he thought he had his memory correct, that the Colt Python, and we all know that's a beautiful firearm, we all know they were expensive even back in the 70s. I had bought a couple of them back then. They were more expensive than other firearms. That he had read that there were 10 hours worth of polishing to get that finish on the Python, I guess the blued ones or whatever, but 10 hours, and that's with someone who is probably a master gunsmith or polisher or whatever, making a high wage, So 10 hours. It just takes more man hours, woman hours, human hours to do some of those things that we don't, we can't fully appreciate maybe sometimes, okay? So that's a big difference, the better fit, the better finish. Maybe, just something simple as that front strap checkering, like on this gun, the rounded, melted edges on it, that kind of thing. It just takes more, but mainly it's the fit and the finish on these guns that really drive up the cost. And in addition, maybe a little bit better steel. Now, I'm going to talk in generalities. Oh my gosh, it's hard to know and pin down what's what on these things. Generally speaking, I think, and I'm going to ask you all that know to share your knowledge, if you know for a fact some of this and can not necessarily correct me, but just elaborate on it. Well, correct me too if I need it. From my reading, it seems that one generalization you can make is that most on the less expensive 1911s, and a lot of these are made overseas somewhere, Turkey or Philippines or somewhere, the frames are cast, all right? Whereas on the more expensive ones, the frames are more likely to be a forged frame, just like the slide. And I think even the slides are forged though on these guns, forged steel, okay? So the barrel, the frame, and the slide, are obviously key parts. And you can pretty well count on, the Wilsons, the Les Bears of the world, the Nighthawks, the Ed Browns. You're going to have mostly tool steel through the whole firearm. Although I've read that they do use some MIM parts, mold injected parts, all right? And that's a whole nother can of worms, isn't it? Because some people say, oh, that's fine, they work and they don't break, and they tend not to. Let's shoot, since this one is the less expensive one, let's go ahead and shoot here while we're kind of yakking. So this firearm does have more, that's another generalization about firearms in the $500–600 category, 4 to 6, let's say, 7, I don't know. They're going to have more MIM parts. Once you get past the frame, the slide, and the barrel, for sure, most of it's probably mold injected parts, okay? And that can be good, it can be bad if they're not done right, as I understand. But I think as a human species, we have kind of, I don't know about perfected, but we have developed the systems for making those that they tend to be pretty strong. So let's shoot something. I'll just put one on the gong. I mean, if it's gong worthy, it can't be all that bad, right? Now the sights are just like black on black, so it's not anything. There we go. I'm gonna try a pig up there in the top row. A little bit low. A little bit low. A little bit high. I'll shoot him some more. I have been shooting this firearm off and on for whatever, 3–4 days, and it's done well. I've not had a malfunction. We might have one today. All right, let's settle down. There we go. Even got a buffalo. Even got us a ram. How about a 2-liter? How about for Kentucky? Yeah. Now this thing is nice. It's the trigger is not all that bad at all. Now I can tell the difference between it and the Ed Brown, but it's not bad at all. It's a nice break. And the reason I requested this specific one was it's kind of decked out like this Ed Brown. All right, you got, look at the sights. They're similar. All this has night sights and everything. And it's, you know, it's got the long trigger, the flat mainspring housing. You got the nice beaver tail, you know, in both of them. Okay. Commander hammer. Now the Ed Brown's got, you know, the stippling up here and that kind of. We're not saying that they're the same, obviously, but this is just kind of representative of the more expensive firearms. But this thing, I'm gonna shoot it again. Can I do that? The MIM parts, as I was saying, you know, they make them to fit, and they don't require. In fact, I think, as I've read, it's hard to machine them once you have them made. You need to make them the right size. Some of you folks that are involved in that kind of work can elaborate on that. But I think that's of course, the beauty of it. Just like a CNC machine, they come out the size you want, and you don't have to mess with them a lot. And in fact, I think it is hard to fit them if you have to do a lot of grinding on them after that. They're not suited for that, as I understand. Now, where I read that might not have been correct. I don't know. I'm not a machinist. Nice. Try another 2-liter for UT. Yeah. Whoa. Slow death. Hey, cowboy, you need a bullet. Yeah. So, thing shoots well. Let me go ahead and shoot this real quick. What did I do? Now, I don't know, did it lock back with a bullet left in the mag? It might have. Now, one thing I was going to say, though, let's put that last one on the cowboy. These magazines, I just brought out my hodgepodge. Unless we have a problem with, here's the Rock Island mag that came with it. So we're not going to be hard on these pistols if they have a malfunction, unless they go crazy. If it's with one of my mags, I know some of these have weak springs and all that kind of thing. I just grabbed a bunch of them. So just keep that in mind, all right? Let's shoot the, we're empty, yeah. The Ed Brown too here. Just to remind you, it shoots just fine, cowboy. 2-liter. Yeah, gong. Let's see, what about the turkey up there? What about the ram? Oh. See, there's a difference right there. The Ed Brown doesn't generate as much muzzle energy. Did you believe that? Yeah, that's why you need us to keep you straight. That would have nothing to do with it. It's how that animal is set. It's what that is. So, I mean, this one, you know, it's got a beautiful trigger. It's just perfect. It's got night sights, which don't help necessarily, but the thing that helps is it's got you know, the white outline there a little bit, where this one's just black. Or if it were mine, I would paint the front sight or do something there, and that would be a lot better. But I tell you what, this pistol you could take to a IDPA or a USPSA match, you know, today, and do just fine with it. I mean, if you can do just fine, put it that way. No, I'm not. Let's just bang some steel here with it. Kind of fun to get out the old 1911s again. I don't shoot them often enough. Let's see, let me go to holster here. This is my old gun sight holster. I bought that, it had to be around 89 or 90. And let's shoot something. Yeah. Sawdust falling out of that bowling pin. Boy, we need some bowling pins. Feels good. Feels really good. Oh, we got some targets right here. We got a paint can that's about shot. Now it's really shot. Oh! Whoa, John, we almost got hit. Great little gun, no doubt about it. You could buy that firearm or one like it, one in that category, and be perfectly happy. And you notice we have, John's been showing you, I think, our USGI pistols out here too, because I mean, technically that falls into a $3,000 category as well, or thereabouts, or more or less. You know, and the reason these are expensive is they were actually World War I or World War II firearms, actually used in battle. And so, you know, that's another way you can spend more on a 1911. And because of the history, the age, their antiques and all that. But then also back then, you know, one thing I think about is the way the major custom makers make their guns. Again, Les Baer, Wilson Combat, Nighthawk, Ed Brown, and on down the line. It's in some ways it's like the way those were made. You know, you had real steel all the way through. I guess tool steel, and had to be fitted, and a lot of time involved. Accomplished gunsmiths, master gunsmiths, whatever you want to call it. Okay, a lot of words for that, but a lot of hours put in by people who really know what they're doing. Okay. And that's another thing that's cool about those. You get an old gun like that, yeah, the main value to me is the fact it's World War I or World War II. It's so cool. But you also want to keep in mind, you know, it's made more like these are in terms of the steel and everything. There's definitely no MIM parts on these old things, these old babies. They might be a little loose more than you like, but so, and of course these custom gun makers, they're not trying to be mil-spec. Now this one is mil-spec. I think most of the Rock Island Armory and maybe some of the ours, you have to check, I don't know, the Turkish guns and various ones, they're mil-spec in terms of these parts supposedly are interchangeable with most of the old military guns, like those lying there. That's not as important to some people. Once you get into a price category like $2,000 or $3,000 or more, it's like that with ARs. You know, LWRC or LaRue or Daniel Defense maybe, I don't know. You can name a lot of the high-end AR-15s. They don't care whether they're mil-spec or not. The reason they're so expensive, and I hope I'm speaking correctly when I mention names like that. There's a lot of, they're really high-end AR makers. They are about trying to design a better bolt, or maybe a better firing pin, or a better, you know, so they're not worried about it. You being able to take a part out of a mil-spec firearm and put it in their gun and it work is not quite as important, okay? Because you're buying those. It's just a different thing. It's like you're not buying a Porsche and then mad because you can't take the carburetor out of your Nissan and put in yours. You know what I'm saying? So so what they try to do is just, they kind of redesign it in some ways, and they don't worry about it being compatible with every part with a mil-spec 1911. They think they're making it better, okay? So, but it's still keeping in the spirit of the same gun. And one thing I was, speaking of cars, that I was going to point out, in some ways, it is like vehicles. You know, either one of these firearms will work just fine. Put either one in your holster, and you go to a match, you could even carry it, whatever, and it's going to work for you probably. You're probably not going to have trouble. And it's like cars. You know, you could buy a Porsche or a Mercedes. It'll get you where you want to go, but so will a Nissan, you know, or even a cheaper car probably. And sometimes even a more expensive car, and even an expensive 1911, it can break on you. It can have trouble. There's a lot of moving parts there. So you're not guaranteed with any piece of machinery that it's absolutely going to work, you know, every time, this year, next year, and 10 years from now. You know, so something could break. So I mean, I'm not going to come down and say, yeah, you don't want to buy that, or you definitely want this, or you definitely don't want it. It's like cars. It comes down to kind of your pocketbook, your tastes, largely your pocketbook, and whether you can even appreciate the difference, whether you even care about the difference. Like if you're into other firearms more so than 1911s, but you wouldn't mind having one for the collection just to plink around with, well, you're in kind of a different category. You know, any old 1911 that you kind of like is fine, isn't it? But if this is your baby, you just love the 1911, and you are willing to put a fair amount of money into one to know you've got at least what we kind of think is the best, quote unquote, the prettiest, the best finish, maybe the best fit, maybe a name you're proud of on it, whether it's Les Bear, Wilson Combat, or whoever, Nighthawk, Jesse James, White Earp, let's name some other cowboy. So, you know, it all comes kind of down to that. And don't give people a hard time. I see this in comments sometimes with whether it's single actions or any gun. It's so obvious. I mean, I try to avoid this in my life, being envious of people because they have a Mercedes or something I can't afford or something else. You know, just because somebody does spend $3,000 or $4,000 for 1911, you know, it's so obvious when we rationalize it. Oh, that's no better than my gun. My gun, I'll shoot that one. You know, it might outshoot it, but don't give a person a hard time if they do spend $3,000. You may have buddies that have them, and you think they're crazy, but you know, they get their kicks from having an Ed Brown or a Wilson Combat. You know, it's just kind of neat sometimes to own what is considered maybe the best example of something. So don't give them too hard a time. So, you know, it kind of gets into like a class envy sort of thing or something. Sometimes you see comments like that. They're both great guns. They both work. Okay, and I'm going to shoot them both again. Because this one, again, I think a part of what, well, we're not proving it here. This is just one sample. But I guess I want to partly just show you that even this $500 or $600 Rock Island Armory from the Philippines really works pretty well. It's even effective on cinder blocks, I think. Oh, nice. Yeah, I put up a new cinder block just for in honor of the 1911. Do I have any more ammo? Yeah, I do. I got another one right here. Let's go back to the holster here. All right. I love a 1911. Let's try a plate. Got him on the last shot. This one you need to hold up on the target a little bit, but not a lot. You can't take a 6 o'clock hold, I've noticed, but it's not a big problem with the sight. And it's dovetailed, so you could replace that if you wanted to. So it's kind of a plain Jane, but I tell you, again, the point is, whether it's a Rock Island Armory or Turkish gun or whatever, they are available now with, you know, the beaver tail, the flat mainspring housing, which most people prefer now, long trigger. You know, this is a configuration that a lot of people like. You know, that's why kind of popular with that. So, you know, bottom line is these work. It's just that when you go in with these really expensive guns, you know, there's Probably less margin of error on something happening. Tell me if you disagree, like, I don't know, the frame cracking on you or something, some major breakage, okay? Although, you know, it's metal and it's a machine, anything could break. You know, these folks like Wilson Combat, I know Ed Brown, they're famous for making some of the best parts in the industry. I know for years, I know when I had my first Colt modified for competition back in, in 87 or something, thought I would try a little IPSC. I think my gunsmith put an Ed Brown beaver tail on it, you know, I mean, and like triggers, oh yeah, I think it was an Ed Brown, maybe, trigger and sear and stuff, yeah. They've been making this stuff forever, and they have a reputation just for the parts they make. And Wilson Combat's the same way, and probably the others, Les Bear, you know, and Nighthawk. But what's Wilson Combat? Bulletproof, right? They're extractors and things. They've got I think a whole line of 1911 parts, and a lot of them some of them are called, I think I'm right, John? Bulletproof, I think is what they call them, you know. And people, in fact, we replaced one of John's 1911s. The extractor wasn't working right in a Colt, put a bulletproof extractor in it, and it started working fine, you know, that kind of thing. So you're not going to find that, you know, with a, you know, well, people are ordering beaver tails and extractors from the Philippines so they can have a good 1911. That's probably not the case. Correct me if I'm wrong, you know. So there is a difference, but they both work, okay? And again, when I say 3,000, you know, we title the video, or 500, you know, I think this one actually is around 6, maybe. And this one, I don't know, Special Forces, you know, Ed Brown, if they still make it, it's in the neighborhood of high 2,000s or low 3,000s, something like that. But you've got all the parts that make these things really comfortable. And I haven't shot this. Can I shoot this one again? Got them dirty, so I need to shoot this one more often too. Pretty nice. And now one thing I prefer about this one, it doesn't have that ambi safety to hit my knuckle. Let's put it in the holster here. Oh, we have a 2-liter we have neglected. Let's just take him out. How about, yeah. And what about that red plate on the right over there? All right, I love that sound. And the gong. Sweet sound. I think there's a mag left. Let's put some on the gong with this thing over there. And also, let's try that red plate on the right. You know, the people from Ed Brown's company probably hate me saying, just standing and shooting this thing, there's probably no difference in accuracy and practical accuracy for me, just shooting around with them. Now, whether I can hit the red plate or not, one thing that makes it a little harder is, press check, we empty. Safety is off. Yeah, we're good. Is I've got to hold up on it, is the fact that I've got this sight that doesn't have the visibility, and the point of aim, I have to hold up on about the top of it, I think, which makes it a little bit harder. But other than that, I don't think there's that much difference. At this distance, let's try it. Once we miss them all. There we go. And the misses were really close. Let's try the gong. Okay. And I was holding too low. Up, click. I think, or else I was flinching. Yeah. So as far as just banging around, shooting in an IPSC match or something, USPSA, whatever you're doing, the biggest difference would be your sights, the visibility on your sights, and the trigger. And the trigger is not that bad at all on this firearm. So again, we're living in great times. You can walk into a gun show or a gun shop, at least in this country, and you can walk out with a 1911 that's combat ready, or one that you can do about anything you want to do with it in the neighborhood of $500 or $600. Okay, so it just depends. And of course, you got the American-made issue. if that bothers you. This is American made, of course, you know, Wilsons and everything. So that's another issue. Now, I don't know if I've helped you any at all. Again, it's kind of like deciding on an AK or something, or even an AR, because there's such a drastic difference in price between these custom guns. Now you do realize, of course, there's a middle ground. And in the middle ground, we might slip. We could have brought a couple out here, because that's most of the 1911s that I've had in my life, like a Colt, okay, or a Springfield Armory, depending on what it has. Actually, they still make some really basic ones, I guess, like that are kind of in that category. But then they've got several that would be in the middle ground, you know, $1,000, $1,200, or whatever, and several other companies too. There's so many companies that make 1911s now, and you got them up in the 2,000 range and then on up. But when you get up into these 4, 5, 6 companies that are just, these are really custom guns, you are going to be talking 25, 3,000 or more. So the difference, I've rambled on about the differences, what you get. It's neat to own something that you know is kind of state of the art, but you got to pay for it, you know. And is it worth it? That's a big question. And that's up to you. Just look at the house you live in, the car you drive, the shoes you wear, the clothes you buy. What else? You just go right on down the list. The TV you bought, the radio you bought, you name it, the pocket knife you carry. I mean, there's a wide range of choices in all those categories, and it's based on your income, your tastes, what's important to you, your values. Lots of times all of us buy something that costs more than we really need. You know, it's better quality than we really need, I guess. So before you give somebody too hard a time for spending $3,000 on a 1911, you know, just keep that in mind. We all do that probably with something, you know, whether it's our shoes or our hearing aids or whatever it might be. So I feel like I probably left out some things that I could have rambled about, but I've rambled enough. And if you're trying to select a 1911, you can get a good one, you know, on that low end. You really can. The fact that there's so many expensive ones doesn't mean these are junk. Just like cars, I see a lot of Kias on the road. As I understand, they're pretty reasonably priced. I don't know how long they'll last, you know, or Hyundais or whatever name you want to brand you want to name. But there's a lot of people driving around, and they work apparently, you know. So it's kind of the same with these, and that's just a fact. So anyway, please, if you have experience, if you're a gunsmith, I mean, we have a wide range of experience in the audience there, gunsmiths, soldiers, and competitors, just everybody. Let us know what your experience has been with these things, you know, with the low ends especially. Now, we all know that they're great guns from the custom gun makers. You can have problems with them, though. You certainly can. They are machinery, as I said. But maybe, yeah, if you've had, again, we're not tied to any gun companies. You know, if you find a certain Turkish company, when we're talking $500, $600 1911s, whichever ones you think are the best, you've got, because you have experience with them, or your friends have experience, or just whatever, or you machine on them, you work on them. I have heard too that gunsmiths sometimes don't want to work on one of these because it's because of the cast frame. Or if you're a gunsmith, you know, share what you know about that. But yeah, if you've got experience with them, let us know. You know, if you've had one, and of course that's anecdotal. You know, that's just, you know, anybody could have one that breaks. But anyway, we'll get some input from you all, hopefully, on that. So the big world of 1911s out there. You may hate 1911s. I don't carry a 1911, but I like them. They're a lot of fun to shoot, and a lot of you feel the same way. I don't carry a single-action Army either, Colt, very often, but they're a lot of fun to shoot. So the carry issue is irrelevant, okay, what we're talking about. They're just great shooters, at least. So anyway, I'm going to quit rambling, and I'm glad you all came out today to, you know, kind of think about 1911s, and this is just a couple of choices. There's a lot of them that would fit in that category, a lot of them that would fit in this category. So whatever you think, let us know. But I don't think a lot. It's really, really hard to do. It takes way too much energy. I might blow a fuse. So you do some thinking for me. Share what you know. Life is good.
Oh yeah, that's better. This is a great gun for defense. Oh hey, didn't see you guys there. While I've got you here, I want to remind you of our friends over at Talon Grips and Ballistol. Talon Grips makes grips, can you believe it, for all different types of firearms. You can get rough texture or more of a rubberized texture. It just sticks right on there. You know, really affordable, really cool option to improve the grip for your handguns or rifles. So please check them out at talongungrips.com. You'll be glad you did. And also Ballistol. Dad has been using Ballistol for many years. It's a cleaner and a lubricant, and it's non-toxic. It works really great, and we're happy to have them on board since it's been a part of our shooting endeavor for a very long time. So go to ballistol.com, talongungrips.com, and also while you're out there, I'm juggling all these things here. Also, while you're on the internet, please do check out our other social media like Hickok45 on Facebook. There's also Hickok45 on Twitter, The Real Hickok45 on Instagram. There's a John_Hickok45 on Instagram where I do some things. There's Hickok45.com. You can find us also on Gunstreamer. So check out all that stuff and then watch more videos.